Good to have you back on the program.
Thanks, Chris.
You and 18 of your colleagues felt strongly enough to file a brief in this case. One of the arguments was that a woman's boss shouldn't be calling the shots about her access to birth control. The other side, of course, would argue it's not about access, it's about religious freedom. And we should say, just to make it clear for everyone, Hobby Lobby does cover, for example, birth control pills, but they don't want to cover certain kinds that they say stop after contraception, things like Plan B or IUDs. But anyway, I want to let you make your argument here.
Well, that's a distinction without a difference. Hobby Lobby's decided what kind of birth control pills women should use when 99% of women have used birth control at some point in their lifetime, including 98% of Catholic women. So it seems to me it is an important point. Who decides? And I would certainly, with great respect to the Hobby Lobby Corporation and all their families, say, look, if you don't want this for your family, it's totally fine, and I would defend your right never to have to use birth control. But why would you put that on every other woman? They have 13,000 employees, so it is about religious freedom, you know, for the people who work there. And here's the other point. I have never heard Hobby Lobby or any other corporation, I could be wrong, or any other boss complain that Viagra is covered in many insurance plans, in practically all of them, or other kinds of, you know, things for men, which I won't go into.
Well, they would argue that that doesn't have anything to do with, this is a life issue for them.
Excuse me, I have never heard them put in any type of moral objection. Remember, this is a moral objection to men getting Viagra, but they have a moral objection to women getting certain types of birth control. So I view this as very much an anti-woman position to take. You could differ, and I would respect that, but I've never heard them complain about that. And then where do you stop? What's their next moral objection? Do they then object to vaccinations? Where do you take it from here? And it's important to note that women take birth control, more than half of them, as a medication for other conditions. So it is an attack on women. I think it's an attack on the religious freedom of the women who work there. Remember, no one is forced to take birth control. It's an individual right. And this is America, and this is the 21st century. And this is shocking. The last point I'd say is, you know, you say the life issue, and I would pick up on that. There has been a well-documented study by a university that gave women free birth control for several years. Abortions went down by 50%, Chris. So if you're for life and you want to attack this issue of abortion, this is a place we could work together and reduce the number of abortions.
I just want to make it clear that that's not my argument. The argument they are making is a life argument. Let me talk to you about your brief a little bit.
I think that's a good one for my side, because, again, you would reduce the number of abortions if women had access to birth control.
Let me talk about the brief. We mentioned that there are 84 amicus briefs filed, among the largest ever, this effort. And by a 3-to-1 margin, they favored Hobby Lobby, including 107 members of Congress, not just Republicans, too, we should say. But I want to read the statement that John Boehner released.
Well, how many Republicans out of the 107 did you take account?
By far, mostly Republicans,
like
but there were a few Democrats.
Or more, yeah, okay. I just want to make it clear.
And you know that there are also more liberal columnists, E.J. Dionne among them, who have made the argument for the religious freedom. But let me allow you to answer Speaker Boehner what he said specifically. No citizen should be compelled to violate their convictions, let alone be punished for refusing to do so. The choice these men and women face between paying fines that could cripple their businesses and dropping employee insurance altogether imperils the jobs, livelihoods, and health care of millions of Americans. The government has placed a terrible burden on charities, universities, hospitals, and family-owned businesses, one our founders promised they and we would never have to bear.
Well, that is completely wrong, because there's a religious exemption in the law, in Obamacare, in the Affordable Care Act. There is a straightforward religious exemption. So if you're a church, you don't have to offer birth control. And if you're affiliated, you don't even have to pay for it. It could be done by a third party. So he's missing the whole point. He's missing the point that all the women and the men who work in corporate America have a right to their religious freedom. And for all the arguments that I've heard, the fact that people would be so passionate about denying women birth control in the 21st century is shocking. And would he feel the same way if the next thing they say is, you know, we don't really believe in these drugs that people take for AIDS. Let's not do that, and let's not do vaccines. This is a slippery slope, and it is about religious freedom of all of our people, and I believe that each person's rights should be respected here.
We're
and I don't think
time,
because you work for a boss, if you work for
that point,
if you work for a boss that doesn't respect your religious freedom, that is really unfair.
I just want to ask you to respond really quickly, because I think you've made an important point, and I want to get your further comment on the whole slippery slope argument. And are you concerned that if the Supreme Court would side with Hobby Lobby, that it is the start of something bigger that could be an attack on Obamacare?
Well, it's not just an attack on Obamacare. It's an attack on the government of by and for the people. If we pass a law, people could pick and choose what laws they want to follow because of their own moral conviction. It may not have anything to do with health care. It could have to do with anything else. With discrimination, they could say, well, it's, you know, we saw that in Arizona. It's against my moral conviction to serve gays at a restaurant. So yes, of course I'm concerned. But let's get back to basics here. It's the 21st century. Women should have a right to get this access to birth control. Half of them, more than half of them, take it for medical reasons. It's an attack on women to deny that to them. That's the basic point I hope that we've made.
Senator Barbara Boxer, always good to have you on the program. Thank you.
Thanks.
Let me bring in a